Well, welcome to week 4 of Change Your World. My name is Steve.
And I'm Gabe.
And we are here at Aloha High School.
I know, where it all started.
Yeah.
For you.
For me. This is where I started with Westside, was at Aloha High School.
Back in the old days when we were meeting here.
Yep.
Yeah.
But we are talking today about influence.
Yeah.
And when I think about influence, this idea that pops into my head is proximity. Right?
Okay, which means?
Kind of how close am I, right?
Okay.
We're here on the football field at Aloha High School, and I think about the first time that I went to a concert, a sporting event. I sat in the nosebleeds. Like, I'm talking last row at the wall.
Oh, wow. Yeah, which is like the only tickets we can afford, right?
Totally.
Sometimes.
Totally. But it was a long ways away from the action.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like I could
What was the
have
event?
any impact. It was a hockey game.
Okay.
So pretty safe, way up. Those were the loud
Not going to get
people.
hit by the puck.
No,
Yeah.
but might get hit by the guy sitting next to you.
Yeah.
But that was a long ways away. And you didn't feel like you had a lot of impact. You're just kind of observing from a distance. And then I remember the first time I ever sat at like the 50-yard line.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that was a totally different experience. I could yell at people. I could tell the refs what I thought. Totally different experience, but still a little bit of a distance, right? A ways away. And then last year, I remember that when my kid would play football at our home games, at our away games, we would be the chain gang, the people that were right on the field marking the first down markers. Those by far were the best seats in the house, other than playing. Now I'm too old to play now, but that was the best seats. You're right there, right? And I think the same was true for every concert that I ever went to. Mm-hmm. The experience was
We almost got
different.
to reach out and touch Chris Martin at a Coldplay concert a few years ago, which was pretty great.
It totally changes the experience,
yeah.
right? And I think that proximity has a lot to do when we think about this idea of change your world and how we are having an impact on each other, and even how Jesus did his ministry.
For sure.
Absolutely had to do with proximity.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's jump into that.
Okay.
Hey, this week we're studying Matthew chapter 4, which is Jesus's kind of recruiting moment with the disciples, the original disciples, the OG disciples. And in Matthew 4, Jesus was at the Sea of Galilee, the lake there, and he was looking for his recruits. He knew he was here for a mission, and that mission wasn't just about just him. Right. I mean, imagine if Jesus had never had disciples, just him. Right. It would have gone nowhere.
One and done.
One and done. But no, he recruited people because that's the name of the game when it comes to what God is trying to do in this world. And so it goes, he saw 2 brothers, Simon, also called Peter, and Andrew, and they were fishing, right? And they were throwing their net in the water. And it says in verse 19 of Matthew 4, it says, Jesus called out to them, "Come follow me and I will show you how to fish for people." Now, we're not told exactly like how much conversation they'd had before this. We know there was a little bit of interaction before this. This was not their first exposure to Jesus. They knew about who he was. Apparently, Andrew at least had already talked to Jesus before this. But it says they had a reaction to that invitation that Jesus made. And it says they left their nets at once and followed him. Big shift. Like all of a sudden, they're like, done. Been waiting for an invitation like this. I'm in, leaving my nets, and the implications financially.
Leaving work.
Alone. Yeah. Quitting their job. I mean, thankfully, Jesus is not asking all of us to quit our jobs so that we can follow him. But in this case, he was. Yeah. It says a little farther up the shore, he saw 2 other brothers, James and John, sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, repairing their nets, and he called to them too. And they immediately followed him, leaving their boat and their father behind. I mean, wow. I mean, in their case, I can kind of see because their stuff was broken. They were trying to repair it. So they're probably like, Dad, this stuff is so old.
On you, Dad. See you later.
Totally. But, when we think about what influence looks like, Jesus is our ultimate model, in every way. I mean, he said, I've come to serve. He gave his life for us. He is so gentle and patient and humble and all those things. But no one in the history of the world has ever had more influence than Jesus. And he did it in 3 years of public ministry.
That's crazy.
What, was just unimaginable. And so we're talking this week about what does influence look like in your own life? And so we're going to kind of bat around some ideas. There's a little framework that we've been kind of learning on our team. And it's interesting as you look at your own sphere of influence. Jesus recruited 12 to begin with. Eventually, it ended up that he also had kind of a core 3.
Yeah.
But he also had all these other people he was influencing. So when you think about who is in your world that God wants you to influence, and he does want us to be up close.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen when you're in the top, the top row. It definitely happens way up close.
I'll tell you though, that was so freeing to really think about how Jesus had those different proximities that I went, oh, I don't have to have 72 people that I'm best buds with.
That's right. Yeah.
That it was, there are a handful of people that were closer and we're seeing more of what's going on in my life.
That's right. Somebody, when I was in college, one of my professors said Jesus had a cone of relationships, and he always went like this, a cone of relationships. Mm-hmm. And so he's like, at the very smallest part was John, the apostle, who calls himself out in the New Testament in kind of a funny way. He's like, I'm John, basically the apostle whom Jesus loved. Yeah. Like Jesus' BFF. Yeah. And then he had the 3, which was Peter, James, and John.
How did he not get punched in the mouth?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he had waited till everybody died and then he said that. Okay. And then he had the 12, right? Which we can start to see this here forming. And then he had 72, and then there were 500, and then there were thousands and thousands. But it was true that he gave himself more fully to John, and then Peter, James, and John, and then the 12. And I just heard today that Jesus spent 3/4 of his time with the 12 and then the 3. 3/4 of his time. So if you think about how you organize your life, sometimes we're like, oh, I got 5 minutes over here and 5 minutes over there and 5 minutes over here. And it's like, man, no wonder we feel pulled in so many directions because we're not focusing in on who is it that God has called us to actually connect with.
3 years. 3/4 of those 3 years he spent with 12 people. And we're still talking about it today.
Revolutionize the world. Yeah. So don't feel guilty if you don't know 1,000 people or if you don't spend time with 1,000 people, because the truth is, it usually changing your world is your world is smaller than you think it is,
Okay. But I wrestle with this idea of there are so many relationships that we have across social media and the people that we go to work with, and there's so many people. How do you narrow that to figure out who are my 12, even who are my 3?
Yeah. I'm glad you asked.
Oh, good.
Okay. Hey, we have four things that we now know. Jesus was looking for 4 characteristics in people. And the first one is he's looking for people who are available. Okay. And, when you look at he walks along, for one, he made himself available because he's right next to these guys on the shore, right? Yeah. And so he's kind of walking past them. They knew who he was, and he goes, come follow me. He was looking for people that would say yes. And that might be an interesting thing, because if you're like, who am I supposed to influence in this world? Especially if you're starting to wrestle through, and I hope you are, the reality that if you follow Jesus, that's not all.
Yeah.
Your goal, Jesus' call in your life, is to help other people follow him too. So how are you going to help someone else follow Jesus? So he's looking for somebody that's going okay, yes, I will do that. I will come to this Bible study. I will sit with you at coffee. I will have a conversation with you. I will allow you to, be in my life, available.
And you've pointed to the parable where Jesus talked about casting seeds and where some of them grew. Great. Okay. I'm going to water those versus somebody's not available because I've reached out to them.
Hard ground.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
That's okay.
Focus on the available.
Yeah.
So that's the A. And if you can, Peter, Andrew, James, John, they were all looking for more. And that might be a clue in that available. Looking for something more, clearly, because they left what they were doing. And then there's an F. So it's AF, and that's faithful. And what we do know about Andrew, that again, this wasn't his first interaction with Jesus, because the first time he met Jesus, he went and told his brother about it. And so already Andrew's like, oh my gosh, I want to engage in this. And so Jesus looked at him as a person who could be faithful. And then he was. Melissa and I have actually been to St. Andrew's Church in Italy, and it's something. And his tomb is there, but just calls out this whole faithfulness that Andrew had. to take in the message and sharing it with his brother. So available, faithful, and then there's teachable. Who do you think of, like if you think of one of the apostles, you think, or the disciples, who do you think of as a teachable one?
Peter.
Yeah. And why, how come?
He would screw up and learn from it.
Yeah. That's right. I mean, that's so true. I thought the same thing. And it's funny because like we look at Jesus you know, he's recruiting like the Pac-10 or something, you know. No, he's like, who's going to be honest enough to admit when they've messed up and go, okay, I want to learn the right way.
And wrestle through. Yeah.
So it goes available, faithful, teachable, and the last one is responsive. And it's like James and John immediately followed him.
Yeah.
You know, responsive to what's going on. So if like you're looking around in your life going, who could I spiritually influence? And again, we hope you are. This is where we're headed as a church, we believe that the Bible teaches this is what we're up to. How do you find people who are responsive, and what's the clue? It might be the initiative test to go like, hey, I'm doing this thing, or hey, how can I partner with you? Or, you know, you back up and go like things that Westside does. Good Neighbor Project. Who shows up, you know? Opportunities. Who's there responding? And Jesus found those things, AFTR, after, follow after him.
Yeah.
And he goes, this is how we're going to build a team that changes the world. Now, every one of us is called to build a team that changes the world. And that's technically our world is just very small.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about what we're asking people to think about this week?
Think about two things. Who are my 3? Who are the people that are closest to me? And who are my 12? 3 in those 12, right? It's not 15.
3 in those 12. That's so important. Yeah, that's good.
So it's probably more like looking at what Jesus did. He said he had 12, and then of those 12, he had 3 that he spent more time with. Who are those people that you're spending time with, that you're influencing? If you're in a group right now, there might be some of those people that are your group. It might be your family that you're spending some time actually going through these concepts with. The people that you spend time with outside of those groups, you start to look at them and say, okay, who fits in this after, using this after framework?
Yeah.
Who fits there? And start to invest in them.
That's good. And you've pointed out before recently, actually, that there is this dynamic about changing your world, and especially if you're thinking about it through the lens of Jesus and what his mission is. You know, we're here to help people find and follow Jesus. That there's this one hand back, one hand forward thing.
Yeah.
Can you explain that real quick?
Yeah. So that I've always thought of that as like a link in the chain, or a group of people climbing a mountain. And if I am the person that everybody else is investing in, I'm the end of that chain. Like all of their effort in front of me is just ends in me. That's it. And I don't want to be that person.
Yeah.
Right. I want to take all of that effort and all of that, everything that was poured into me, and I want to continue to pour it down. If I'm only the person that's going, no, I'm only pulling the people behind me, then I almost get this complex that I'm going to save all these people that are behind me.
Yeah.
Right. That I'm the man. They just need me. I'm at the front of the line, and I don't want to be that. I want to be that link that's in that chain.
That's good.
And saying I always have people that I am listening to and being discipled by, and people that I am going, hey, come with me as I go on this journey. Come with me, and I'm pulling them along with me.
So good. Yeah, and so in that sense, you know, not only are we looking for people who are available, faithful, teachable, responsive, let's be those people. And let's be teachable, coachable, and, you know, be connected to somebody else who's further along the path than us, who's kind of pulling us forward.
Yeah.
But this week, we want to encourage you to think about who's the 3 and who are the 12 that you could be influencing spiritually. So have a great discussion with your group. Thanks so much for being part of Change Your World, and we'll see you again next week.